I just checked the freeze dryer after 17 and a half hours of running. I checked how each of the foods are doing. The watermelon needs to do more time in the dryer, as do the ice cream sandwich bits. Everything else is doing okay. The apples definitely need more time. There's a little bit of moisture still in them. You may or may not be able to hear me over the noise of the freeze dryer, but we got another one going and I have another set in the freezer. Well, let's talk about what can we do to recover our investment in this machine. The first thing that comes to mind is start a freeze drying business. That's really attractive because the machine basically runs itself. There's not a lot of maintenance. There is maintenance. It's not like a standard home freezer because there's more technical demands placed on the equipment. For example, there's a rubber seal on our freezer. We have an upright freezer. There's a seal on it. That means when you go to open the door, it's hard to open the door. But there's a big difference between atmospheric sealing and sealing on vacuum. This vacuum is very strong. Now, I was in the engineering business. I ran engineering teams that built vacuum and ultra-high vacuum equipment. Not freeze dryers. We're building other things. But I can tell you that there are points of failure in all home freeze dryers. Harvest Right has a large installed base. They have a lot of customers, a lot of interest, and they're naturally going to have more complaints because other companies don't have as many installed units in the field. Now, what are the weaknesses in the Harvest Right freeze dryer? Well, there's a vacuum pump, and vacuum pumps are vacuum pumps. They're vacuum pumps on the Harvest Right or any of the other 3 retail suppliers out there. They're going to fail. They all require maintenance. And that's different from your home freezer. You can't get away without doing some work. There is a hose that goes from the vacuum pump to the vacuum chamber in the freeze dryer. The Harvest Right has the correct kind of vacuum fitting on the freeze dryer itself, but the hose that goes from the vacuum pump to the chamber itself isn't exactly right. It works. It's low cost. It's easy to fix. But there is a better way, a lot more expensive way. I don't worry about it. There's a cooling unit in every single freeze dryer. It's for freezing. It's a simple one. It has a large demand placed on it, but the right engineering trade-offs, it will work just fine. Other things. The freeze dryer has a software controller in it. And that means there's software updates. And I hate having to update a brand new piece of equipment that I've just installed. But that's the way of the world. Now the good news is that you can update the software, and it has been getting better. The bad news is you have to use their software, at least at this point, but there are people working on open source software for this kind of product. Probably the biggest issue with home freeze dryers is that people using them, generally speaking, don't know a lot about high vacuum, low temperatures, lower than 20 below zero, and all these kinds of sealing mechanisms. Could you have better seals? Absolutely. Go buy a commercial machine. Spend a lot more money. Buy a lot more money. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20 times what this unit costs. Are they available? Sure. Got the money for one? I don't think so. How do you get money out of this unit? You could freeze dry products. Now, Irene and I have both been in the commercial food processing business in the past. Irene ran a tea company that brewed and packaged shelf-stable tea that went into gallon jugs. It was a great business to be in. I redesigned the line to speed up the processing and reduce the number of labor hours that went into the product. So we have a good idea about what it takes to be in that business. If you're really be in that business, you need to be producing product in a commercial kitchen. And that's not a home kitchen. That means you have to have all of the ingredients for a commercial establishment. That means walk-in freezers, walk-in coolers, places to hold product when you're getting ready to put it in the freeze dryer, processes to ensure that it's going to remain safe, temperature measurements, sanitation procedures, everything. But it is possible to run a cottage business. By cottage business, what do I mean? It means that you are allowed to make some kinds of products in your home kitchen and sell them. Mostly that means that you sell it within the state that you live. That means the state where your kitchen is located. But there's things you can't make. No meat products, no dairy products, no fish products. Nothing that isn't absolutely shelf-stable naturally. You can do cookies and cakes. You could do jams, but you can't freeze and dry a jam. But what could you freeze dry? Well, fruit is one. Strawberries, lemons, oranges, grapefruit. Whole manner of fruit that you can freeze dry. That's all legitimate in most states for most cottage industries. You can also do freeze-dried candy. Why would you freeze-dry candy? Well, the answer is really simple. When you freeze-dry it and it gets dried, a lot of times that candy will expand and will change the texture of the candy, which means when you bite into that candy, you get a different impact of flavor, meaning you mostly get a much, much bigger blast of flavor. Will we do that? I'm going to look at it. There are a lot of laws everywhere. It seems simple to say I'm going to do cottage food. It's not so simple. There are different state regulations in different states. There's different amounts of food that you can do, different kinds of food you can do. There's different labeling requirements. So there's a lot of questions to get answered. And those are some things I'll cover in a future show.